So this is going to be a review of synthetic and long division. So we will start with synthetic here. Remember, there's a couple of rules here. You need everything to be in descending order, and you also need to have placeholders if something is missing. So here it's in descending order. On synthetic division, I do mine this way. I know some people do it a little different, but my house is flipped upside down and have a porch. On my porch, I go in here and I take the opposite of this number when it's written x plus or minus. That's the only sign I change in synthetic division, so that's a -1. And then the things that go in here, basically on the second floor of my house here, is the coefficients 3, -1, +2, and -7. So I have 3, -1, 2, and -7. And so then to do synthetic division, I simply drop the first number down every time. No matter what's on the porch, no matter what the first number is, no matter what happens, you always bring that first number down. So you bring down the 3. Then you begin your process that you will repeat over and over and over. You take this -1 times this 3 down here, and you write it right here, -3. All right? So I'm going to erase that, and so it's going to be -3. And then I take and I put these together. I'm going to use the word add, but what I mean is don't change either one of these signs here. So if they're both negative, that means you have what? A negative, and 3 plus 1 is 4. You add them together and keep it negative. So we just finished the process. Now we start the process over again. We take this -1 times this -4, and we write it right here. So that's going to be -1 times -4 is +4, and then again we use the word add. So then 2 plus 4 is 6, and that just means don't change the signs that are out here. They're both positive, keep it positive. Then we start the process over again. We're done with the process. -1 times +6, and we write it right here. What is -1 times +6? It's -6. And then again, I'm going to say the word add, even though they're both negative. But if you add two negatives, the answer is negative, and it's 7 plus 6 is 13. And this number here represents our remainder. So we started with x to the third power. That's what this represented. We divided by x. This means this is x squared. So this is x to the third. This is x squared. So my answer here is going to be equals 3x squared minus 4x plus 6. Didn't give myself enough room, so give me just a second here. And then it's going to be a negative remainder, so minus 13 over what I divided by, x plus 1. So just like this 3 goes here, this -1 goes here, this 2 goes here, and this -7 goes here. This 3 here, this -4 goes here, this 6 goes here, and then this 13, I don't like the way I did that there, is up here, right? That's this whole thing here, all right? And then this that was already in the denominator goes here, all right? So we sort of deconstruct this thing and put those things here. Then we take these things and we add them back over here, all right? That's how that is. Let me get all this extra garbage off the screen here, all right? So this is our final answer here. So let's move on to another synthetic division here. Another synthetic division. So let's see, we have, my house is flipped upside down. I got a porch. This time with x plus 3, I'm going to do what? I'm going to put a -3 on my balcony or my porch here, right? So then I take my coefficients. 4 is x cubed. My x squared is 10. My x is -10, and my constant is -11. So with synthetic division, what do? The very first thing is drop down this first number. So my first number is 4, drop it down. And just to review, this 4 represents x cubed, so what's it going to be here? X squared, just to remind us when we get ready to go to the end here, that's what's going to happen. So then we start the process. We take the -3 times the 4, we put it right here. That's going to give us -12. So again, let me get rid of this stuff here. It's going to be -12 Then we add these together. Again, I use the word add because that means I'm not changing the sign I just did like I do in long division each step. We'll see that later when we do some long division problems. So 10 minus 12 is going to be negative 2. And then we start the process again. We say negative 3 times negative 2. That's a positive 6. We're going to add these together again, meaning don't change the sign. So a negative 10 and a positive 6 gives me a negative 4, right? We subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. Then we start the process over again. Negative 3 times negative 4 is a positive 12. So a negative 11 plus 12 is a positive 1, and that 1 is my remainder. That 1 is my remainder. So again, this is x squared over here, right? So this is going to be 4x squared, and then this represents x. So minus 2x, and then this represents my numbers or my constants. That's not a hashtag. So then minus 4 and plus 1, because my remainder is positive. That's why it's plus 1. Over, what did I divide by? X plus 3. So that's what I'm going to do. Here's x plus 3. So again, let's do another synthetic division. So my house upside down. What goes on my porch this time? A positive 5. That's right, the opposite of that sign right there. So then my coefficients are 2 for x cubed, and for x squared it's just a 1. For x it's negative 46, and then for my constant it's negative 47. Then I'm going to say, okay, drop down my 2. Then I say 5 times 2, and I write it here. What is 5 times 2? That's right, 10. Then I 10 and 1 and add that together and get 11. And I'm finished the process. Now I'll do the process again. I say 5 times 11 and write it here. So 5 times 11 is 55. 55 minus 46 is 9. Then I do 5 times 9 and write it here. What is 5 times 9? 45. What is negative 47 and 45 put together? Well, negative 47 is bigger, and 47 minus 45 is 2, so it's negative 2, and that represents my remainder. So what does this 2 represent this time? X squared again, right? This started with x cubed. We divided by x and went down by 1 power. So this is going to be 2x squared. And then what does the 11 mean? It means plus 11x, and then the 9 is just plus 9, right? If there's no sign, it's positive. And then my remainder is negative, so I'm going to put this negative here because that's negative there. So negative what? Negative 2 over, what did I divide by? X minus 5. That came from this x minus 5 right here, in the upper left there. So that's my final answer. So then another synthetic division here I pre-prepared, then I'm going to do a few. I'm just going to make a couple up and do maybe 1 or 2 of those. So we have this one here. We have, again, on my balcony or my porch, what goes on that? The opposite of this plus 2 because it's in the form of x plus or minus. So negative 2, and then we have 2, negative 7, negative 8, and 17. Right, 2x cubed, negative 7x squared, negative 8x, and plus 17. And then I'm going to do what? Drop down my 2. Then I say negative 2 times 2 is what? Negative 4, and put it here, right? And then I add these together. Negative 7 and negative 4, you add them together and get 11 and keep it negative. Then you do negative 2 times negative 11, and that's 22, right? We're going to put 22 there. So then, oops. What is 8? Negative 8 plus 22. That's going to be a positive 14. Then we take negative 2 times 14 and get negative 28 and put it here. So we have negative 28 and 17 is going to be negative 11, right? They're different signs. We subtract them and keep the sign of the larger. So then this is going to give me 2x squared, right? This was x cubed. We divided by x, so now that's x squared. So then that's going to be minus 11x plus 14, And then again, my remainder is negative, so 11 over what I divided by to start with is x plus 2, and that is my final answer. So what I want to do now is create a couple maybe. So let's add a page in here, and let's just work us a synthetic. So we're going to do synthetic again. So we'll do 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared minus x plus 11. So we'll do that, and we're going to divide this by, we'll even write it a little different. We'll divide it by x minus 1. Remember, that's the same thing as putting it over x minus 1. Those the same type of deal going on here. So if I take this upside down here, put it on my porch. So now we take this number, the opposite of it. That's going to be 1. That goes on my porch. Then we take our coefficients. Now this x to the fourth is my biggest power. Then I don't have an x to the third, do I? I go from 4 to 2, which means I skip x to the third if it's in descending order, which this one is. So I've got to skip some space right here for x to the third. And I'm going to come over here and put a 3 for x squared, and then a negative 1 for x, and then my 11 for my constant. So since I skipped something, I need a placeholder. There are no x to the thirds. You don't see one. There's 0 of them, so I have to put that 0 in there. So this is x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, x, and my constant or my number. Okay? So that's how I arrive there, and I must have that 0 placeholder that I added. This must be here. Must be here. Okay? So it must be there. Now I do synthetic division just like I would normally do it. I take my 5 and I drop it down, I get a 5. Then I do 1 times 5 and put it here. What is 1 times 5? 5. And 0 plus 5 is 5. Then I do 1 times 5 is 5, and right it there, it's going to be 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. Then I say 1 times 8 is 8, and write it here. I'm just doing my process over and over again. Now I do negative 1 plus 8, which is 7. And then I do 1 times 7 and write it here. And that's going to be 7. 11 and 7, if you add it together, gives you 18. And that is my remainder. So what is this first 5? What does this right here represent now? Well, look, we started with x to the fourth. It goes down by 1, so this now represents x to the third power. So my answer, I'm going to have to write it kind of down low here because I don't know if I have enough space out here. So it's going to be 5x to the third. That's this 5 here. What about this 5 here? That's x squared, so plus 5x squared. Then we have this, which is plus 8x. Then here's your constant, the one that doesn't have an x on it, plus 7. And then my remainder is positive, so plus 18 over what? Well, what did I divide by to begin with? X minus 1, so that's what goes under my remainder, in this case 18. So the big idea here was I wanted you to see the 0 that was left out there. And I also did one that didn't have anything to do with the power being 4. I just left something out there. So let's move on to long division. Long division. So we're going to take this x squared minus 16x plus 64 over x minus 8. So the thing up top, the numerator, is going to be under the house. Okay, that's not proper terminology, but if I say under the house, you know what I mean. And then outside in the rain or the sunshine or the snow or whatever, we got x minus 8. So when you do long division, just like you do long division of numbers, the very first thing you do is you look at the first thing here and the first thing here. All right? So over here, let's do this in a little thought cloud over here. So over here in a thought cloud, let's just do this problem here. Let's do 756 divided by, wait a minute. Well, that's fine. Divided by 5. All right? If I do that, let's set it up like we have this other one here. We have 756 under the house and 5 out front. So what do I do with numbers? Well, I'll look at this thing and this thing, right? 5 and 7. what can I multiply by 5 and keep it under 7 is how we do it with numbers, right? So 1. Because then I do 1 times 5, and I get what? 5, and I write it right here. But then what do I have to do? I subtract it. And subtracting, we were all taught minus, whatever. No, subtracting means change the sign. So I'm going to change my sign or subtract. That now becomes a negative 5. And then I have a 7 and a negative 5, which gives me a 2. And then to finish that process, I do what? I bring down my next, in this case, placeholder, whatnot. So that 7 and negative 5 and 2 were all in the hundreds, and now I brought down the 5 that's in the tens column. And I'm ready to start my process again, right? So what do? I say, what do I multiply by 5 to get 25? Well, 5. So 5, then I multiply this. 5 times 5 is what? 25. And then what do? I change my signs, right? Subtract. So 25 minus 25 is 0. Wait a minute. That's okay. I still have something else there, right? I still need to bring down my next. This is my ones column. Bring down my 6. So instead of 16 or 26, I just have 6. The 0 in front of that doesn't change the value of that 6. So now I look at the 5 and the 6. What do I multiply by 5 to get 6, or that stays under it? And again, that's a 1. I do 1 times 5 and get what? 5. And then what do? I change my signs. Change my signs. Make that minus. So 6 minus 5 is 1. And that 1 represents my remainder. So my answer here is 151 and 1/5. 1/5, right? 1 over what I divided by. In a mixed number, we would never really write this in a mixed number, but it really means add. If you had 151 and 1/5 of something, it's not times it, it's not multiplied by it or divided by it or subtracted from it. It is added to it. So that is, we're going to put the plus there because of what we're doing with the other things, but really in a mixed number it's not there, but 151. So we're going to do the same thing over here. Just like we looked at this 5 and this 7 and said let's put a 1 here and then multiplied it and put it here. Let's do that over here. I'm going to say, what can I take the x? Now this has two terms, so we're going to take the first term and this term. What do I multiply by x to get x squared? And some of you are going to see that right off the bat and say, oh, that's x, and I'm going to put it in my x column. These are my x's. Well, I don't want to put it here. Nope. A lot of people put that. I used to do that, but these are my x column. Let's put it in the x column. All right. The other way to think about this, when I'm looking at this into this, I can just write it over itself and then simplify it. Right? 2 minus 1 gives me x to the, just gives me x, right? And that's what I put right here. Well, I shouldn't have done that. So I can get this without erasing everything else. All right. So then I take this x and I distribute it to here and to here. So x times x gives me x squared. Then I also multiply this, x times negative 8. That gives me negative 8x. And what did I do? After I multiply 1 times 5, 5, I changed my sign, right? So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to change my sign. Make this a minus, or signs, because I have more than one, and make this a plus. X squared minus x squared cancels. That's a major difference. Over here with numbers, you just had to keep this number less than this, right? It could be equal to it, but it couldn't be greater. So then you might have had something other than 0 here. On polynomials, this first column always cancels out, meaning it goes to 0. That's what cancel is. If it doesn't cancel, you messed up. Put a Band-Aid on it, start over, you made a boo-boo, right? So then we go to the next part. We have negative 16x plus 8x. 16 and 8 are different signs. I subtract this 8x, and then this is bigger. So then my answer is negative 8x. And now what did I do over here? I brought down the next thing here. So guess what I'm going to do over here? Bring down the next thing, which is the next term. So plus 64. And just like I started the process over in my little thought cloud over there, I'm going to start the process over here. So now what do I look at? I still look at the x. I still look at this x here, and I look at this negative 8x. What do I multiply by x to get negative 8x? Well, I already have the x. What I don't have is the negative 8, so minus 8. And here's another hint. If I put an x here, I can't put 8x right there. That's garbage, okay? Can't do that. You can never have two things in a row. Like you can't have x squared and then x squared, or x and then x. Or x to the third and x to the third. You can't have two in a row of the same thing. Because again, here's my x column, and then this is just my numbers column. So when I write a number up here, it can only be a number. It can't be x or y. It's got to be a number. So then I have negative 8 times x. That's negative 8x. Then I also do negative 8 times negative 8. That gives me plus 64. What do I do after I multiply? Change my signs. Every time I do a problem in long division, I have to change the signs. Make this a plus, I'll make this plus a minus. That cancels. Then I have plus 64 minus 64. And again, that cancels. It goes to 0. And there's your remainder. It's 0. So if the remainder is 0, then this is just my answer. My answer is just x minus 8. And there's no remainder. You don't have to worry about plus anything, minus anything. Just 0. The remainder is 0, so it's just x minus 8. So again, let's do long division. Under here we have x squared plus 5x plus 4. Out here we have x plus 4. So now what do I look at first? I look at x and x squared. What do I multiply by x to get x squared? That's an x. Then I say x times x is what? X squared. That's why I did it. These things got to be identical before I change signs or they're not going to cancel out. And then x times plus 4 gives me what? Plus 4x. Don't forget to distribute this x times both of these things. Then I come back and say, okay, what do I do now? I change my signs. Make this a minus. Make this a minus. That cancels. What is 5x minus 4x? That's just good old x. And then bring down my what? Plus 4. Right? 5 minus 4 is 1, but we don't write 1 there, right? We don't write a 1 there. It's just x. Bring down the plus 4. Then I only look at what? I only look at this x and this x. What do I multiply by x to get x? Wait a minute. They're already the same thing. So what do you multiply by to get the same thing? A 1. What kind of 1? Plus 1. So then you take your 1 times x and then your 1 times 4. 1 times x is x. 1 times 4 is positive 4. Then what do? Got to change those signs. Minus here, make this a minus. That cancels. What is 4 minus 4? 0. So again, my remainder is 0. It doesn't have to be 0. It's just what it is on these. So then this is my answer, x plus 1. This just equals x plus 1. Just x plus 1. So here again, long division. Put my house here. I got x squared minus 13x plus 37. And outside I have x minus 6. So then what do I look at first? I look at this x and this x squared. I need x, right? So x. And then x times x is what? X squared. Then I say x times negative 6 is negative 6x. And then I change my signs. Minus here, plus here, this cancels. And when I put those together, negative 13x plus 6x is negative 7x, right? Subtract, keep the sign larger, then bring down my plus 37. And now I start the process over again. I look at this x and negative 7x. What do you multiply by x to get negative 7x? That's right, negative 7. So negative 7 times x is what? Negative 7x. And then I also take negative 7 and multiply by negative 6. A negative times a negative is positive. And then 7 times 6 is 42. And then what do? Change my signs, right? Every time. Plus here. Change this to a minus. That cancels. What is a plus 37 minus 42? Well, they're different signs, so we subtract them. So 42 minus 37 should be 5. And then the larger number is negative, so it's negative 5, and that represents my what? Remainder. So here, first long division we've seen with a remainder, but look, we take this and put this over this, right? That's what we have. So we start with x minus 7, and then we have minus because this negative here is because my remainder is negative. And then over what? What did I divide by? This is what goes here. So x minus 6. So x minus 7, and then minus 5 over x minus 6. So what I want to do, I had these prepared. I want to add a couple more of these on here, long division, and see if we can't sort through some of these. All right, we're going to do another long division right here. So long division, we'll do 4x to the third minus, 8x squared plus 7x minus 11. And let's divide that by 2x minus 3. All right, let's try this one out and see what happens here. All right, so let's see. Let's take this and under my house here, I'm going to have 4x to the third minus 8x squared plus 7x minus 11, and then 2x minus 3 out front here. All right, so what I have to do is I have to figure out, okay, what do I look at? Well, I look at the first term here and the first term here, and I have to say, okay, what do I multiply by 2x to get 4x cubed? Or I can think about it as 4x cubed divided by 2x, and then when I simplify that, that tells me what to do. All right, so I say, okay, I need to multiply 2 times 2 to get a 4, and then I have 1x, right? I have 1x here, and I need how many? I need 3 total, so I need 2 more x's. So I need a 2x squared. I'm going to put that in my x squared column here, right? Because those are both x squareds. So 2x squared, and then what do? I have to multiply this by both of these things, right? I have to distribute. So when I multiply 2x squared times 2x, I get what? I get 4x to the third, and I put that in the x cubed column, right? And I want you to note something. I got exactly what was above it. If I didn't get exactly what was above it, then I didn't do it right. Right? That's the whole reason I chose 2x squared, was so those things would be identical. That way when we change the sign, right, they cancel out. So then I also have to take this and multiply it by the negative 3. So what is 2 times negative 3? Well, that's negative 6, and then there's an x squared, right? And then I have to do what? Change my signs, right? Minus here, plus here, and that cancels, which is why I did it, right? So then I say, okay, negative 8x squared, right? I got to put these together. Negative 8x squared plus 6x squared. Well, negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2, and it's x squared. Then we bring down what? Plus 7x, okay? So remember, we're going to reiterate this process. We're going to do it over and over again, and after we do the bring down step, we start over. So now we're ready to start over, except this time we again need to identify what am I looking at. I'm still looking here at this first term, but I'm also looking at this now, this first term. So I have a 2x, and I need to make it a negative 2x squared, so I know I need a what? Right off the bat, I need a negative. And then I already have 2, so I don't need that, and I have 1x here, and 2x is here, so I need one more x. So I just simply need negative x because I already have the 2. So then again, I take this negative x and multiply it by both these things, right? So what is negative x times 2x? Well, that's negative 2x squared, which, look, that's bingo, right? Because it was supposed to be the same thing. Then I also take this negative x and multiply it by negative 3. What is negative x times negative 3? That is a positive 3x. And once I do that, then I do what? I change my signs. Right? I'm subtracting more than one term, which is distributing a negative, which changes all my signs. So this is plus, and this becomes what? A negative. That cancels again, right? And then I have a positive 7x minus 3x. And when I do that, I get what? 4x, and bring down my what? Minus 11. And notice I just did my bring down step. So now I'm ready to start over. So what is it I look at this time? I'm still looking at this 2x, but now I'm looking at 4x here, right? So what do I multiply by 2x to get 4x? Or what if I divide 4x by 2x, right? I get a 2, and I get what kind of 2? A positive. So then I take this 2 times the 2x, right? And I get 4x. And again, these are identical. That's why I did it. That's why I chose plus 2. But I also have to distribute the 2 to the negative 3, right? Which is minus 6. Is that correct? And then I do what? After I get through multiplying, I change my sign, right? We subtract, but that's changing signs. Minus, plus, that cancels. And I'm left with negative 11 plus 6, which is negative 5. And that is my remainder, okay? That's my remainder. So what's my answer? Well, I have all of this, and then I have my remainder over what I divided by, okay? So I have this whole thing is going to be 2x squared minus x plus 2. And then it's going to be minus 5 over 2x minus 3. That's how I'm going to write it. Because when I have a one-term remainder here, I'm going to put this sign right here. However, You could also see it this way, 2x squared minus x plus 2. You can always put a plus and then just put your remainder in the numerator there in the top, okay? So just in case you see that on whatever platform you're using, if you use a electronic platform for homework in your class or whatever, it may want it one way or the other, or your instructor may want that one way or the other. I'll take either on my test. I'll take either one. You're going to see me write it this way, though, when it's a one-term remainder. If it's more than one term, I'm going to put plus and just put my numerator up there. Let's do one more long division here. We're going to do x to the, x to the third minus x plus 3 divided by x minus, minus x squared, I'm sorry. So x to the third minus x squared plus 3 over x plus 1. Let's just see how this one works out. So, let's see what colors I want to use. Come down here, what's going to go in my house here? It's going to be x to the third minus x squared, but wait a minute, I'm missing the x's, right? So just leave a blank for that and then come over here and put plus 3. Leave blank space for that, and then out front I go x plus 1. So in my space that I'm missing something, I'm going to come in here and put plus 0x, because 0 times x has no value. I'm only putting that there as a placeholder. So then I want to come back and say, okay, x to get x to the third. That's going to be x squared. So we put an x squared here, then we multiply x squared times x to the third. X squared times plus 1 is going to be plus x squared. Then I'm going to come in here and change my sign. Make that a minus, make that a minus, that cancels. And so what does that give me when I have a negative and a negative? Well, when I add them together, I keep it negative. And I got 2 of them. I got 1 plus 1, just 2 of them. So negative 2x squared. And then I bring down my plus 0x, which really is bringing down nothing except a placeholder. But that just reminds me, hey, that's a placeholder. So then I look at this x and negative 2x squared. Well, I know I need a negative 2. And I have 1x here, and I need 2, so I need 1 more, right? When I'm talking about powers. So then negative 2x times x gives me negative 2x squared. Negative 2x times positive 1 gives me negative 2x. And then what do? That's right, I change my signs, right? Make this a plus, make this a plus. That cancels. And then I have, look, 0 doesn't change anything. 0 plus 2x is 2x. And finally, I bring down my plus 3, and I'm ready to start the process for a third time here, right? I've been through the process once here, a second time here, and about to go through it a third time down here, right? So I look at this and I go, okay, what do I multiply by x to get 2x? Well, I got the x, I don't have the 2, right? So I need a plus 2 here. So 2 times x gives me what? 2x. 2 times plus 1 gives me plus 3. No, it doesn't. It gives me plus 2. And so then what do? Change my signs, minus, change this to a minus, that cancels. So that I have plus 3 minus 2 gives me what? A 1, and that represents my remainder. So my answer, my final answer here is going to be this, and then my remainder over this, right? So we have x squared minus 2x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 1. So again, the placeholder when you have one that is not there. So this wraps up synthetic division and long division. Just some extra problems, some extra review. Hope this helps, and good luck in your algebra.